Hey everybody. I hope you guys are all doing well. I just finished stringing my first racket, actually. It was about an hour ago. Um, and as you can kind of tell by this mess, I had a couple of problems stringing it. So, kind of the whole story was that the the string machine arrived a few days ago, and I made that first impressions video on it. Eventually, I'm going to try and make a review on the full machine once I feel I understand stringing it all enough. And then yesterday was when I first tried stringing. As you can see, I strung it with ISOSpeed baseline control, and you can only buy it by the reel, and it's only $40 for a full reel. Mark Sandset made a YouTube video, and he says that it's like RPM Blast, but for $40 a reel, which is a pretty good deal. And judging by all the string that I wasted, it's probably a good thing I chose such a cheap string. So as for the racket, I strung it's a Pure Aero Team, which is my racket. I'm looking to upgrade, but this is the only one I own right now. I strung it at 57 pounds, two piece. You can see like my knots, the knots for at the ends, and the starting knot. Starting knot was, I don't know if it'll focus, but starting knot was all right. But the finishing, the double hitch knots that I used to finish stringing didn't turn out too well. I was basically watching this YouTube video from Tennis Spin, who's a guy that owns a tennis or runs a tennis shop down in California. He taught how to string. He was using a Wilson Bayardo, which is a bit of an upgrade from a Alpha Pioneer DC Plus. I was able to finish the string job. They're not quite the most straight. It's not the most straight, but that's not a big deal. I was able to do the entire thing using just the tools that came in came with the string machine, which is kind of nice to have. Just some pliers and some string cutters. A couple of people pointed out that this mechanism right here is called a pawl. I'm assuming I'm saying that right. So thanks for pointing that out. That's a pretty basic mechanics thing that I just didn't know until earlier today when I read the comments. So what did I think of my first time stringing? So I got the ISOSpeed reel yesterday, and I was all ready to string. So I put the racket on the machine, and I started following the YouTube video. And in the YouTube video, he measures the string off of the racket to measure the mains. So I measured out the mains, and I must have either been really, really conservative with the amount of string that I pulled, or I like counted an extra main when I didn't actually measure the string for that length, because I ended up having enough string to go down all the mains, but not enough to reach basically the tensioner, basically. I know I just said basically like 3 times in 2 seconds. And unfortunately, despite what I've seen from watching YouTube videos, I haven't purchased the starting clamp yet. So I wasn't able to extend to get to this. And so I had to basically just get rid of that string. And so that's how I wasted 1 main worth of string. Then I started to string again. So I pulled the mains out and measured again from the reel, which is a good thing that I did. Bought a whole reel, because if this was actual RPM Blast, I would probably have spent $100 and only gotten 1 racket worth of string. So I measured the mains again, and I even went as far as to measure an entire extra main in order to make sure that I wasn't short because of the distance to the gripper. And that all went fine and dandy. I strung it up and got to the ends and tied some pretty lousy knots, like I've been doing. If anyone has a way for me to, I noticed that the starting knot turned out pretty good, or at least satisfactory, by because the pulling tension was able to pull the knot tighter than it was for the hitch, which I don't want a starting clamp, and so I was trying not to be too aggressive with it because the pliers would mess up the string, and I didn't want it to snap. Sorry, I'm just having some hiccups. So I finished the mains and kept thing on the machine, and then I started measuring out the crosses, and the crosses went fine. I pulled an extra cross of length just to make sure. Actually, when I was doing the mains, I ended up with a lot of extra string, as in probably 2 mains worth of extra string, so that means I probably did something wrong the first time in terms of measuring too short. So I did the second main, or I did the crosses, and I was almost finished. I was at the last cross, and I think it was this grommet right. I think it was this grommet right here that I was trying to force the string through because it was covered by one of the mains, and I had it in the pliers, and I was pushing, and I accidentally snapped this main right here, which was really frustrating because as a beginning tennis stringer, that was about maybe an hour and a half or to 2 hours of my life wasted, and an entire racket worth of string wasted. And so from there, I kind of gave up for the night and woke up this morning and was ready to try one more time. So I put the racket on the machine and did the mains, did the lousy, crazy knots, and then did the crosses. Start with the starting knot, and then crosses like normal. They're not I said this earlier, I think, but the crosses aren't super straight, but I can straighten those out later. Mostly that's from the technique where you pull the strings down when you're pulling them through in order to try and not burn the strings or notch them on poly, I guess. I don't know what I'm actually saying. I'm just repeating what I saw in the YouTube video. And I was able to finish it without too many problems. I'm yet to go out and play test it because it's a little bit damp still. I might go out and try that. So overall, what I learned from this experience is, one, just because you watched a YouTube video a bunch of times doesn't mean you're an expert, which is something that probably applies a lot outside of stringing tennis rackets. Second of all, get a starting clamp. So I think a starting clamp will help when I do perhaps string other ways. And it's a good thing that I was stringing on my own racket. I don't think it would be a good idea for me to learn to string on somebody else's racket because who knows what would happen. So get a starting clamp and being able to extend to this, because at this point I'm probably going to be pulling so much extra string off the reel that I'm going to probably waste the entire racket every few string jobs. But overall, I think it was a good experience. I learned 3 times as much as I would if I had done it right the first time. And so yeah, if I had done it right the first time, I wouldn't be very fluid still. I've gotten pretty fluid with moving the clamps and locking them in place and stuff. And by the end, I was just listening to music and doing the crosses and weaving, and it was pretty relaxing. My hands are pretty sore. I haven't kind of built up the calluses or whatever, and I'm not even using a very sharp poly. You tell your story about the first time that you remember stringing a tennis racket, if you do that. I think it would be interesting to compare. Obviously, it's a little bit different. I think a lot of people probably learn one on a 2-point, like alpha or gamma progression 2, or even a clipper mate. Thought about buying a clipper mate. Or they learn it as like a summer job in high school at a pro shop, which is somewhere that I'd like to end up working. I'm still in high school, but learning to string on this should give me a bit of a boost if I try and apply for a summer job. And that's about it from my first time stringing. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Leave a like and subscribe, and leave a comment down below. Tell me how your first time stringing was, and if there's anything that you think could help me or anything overall that you just want to share with the world. Thanks for watching.